to the club.
Hang on.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Sunday. I forgot to hit that go live, Vince. Jeez, there you go.
Not again, Joe.
Yeah, I've done it again. So, yeah, I need a bit of practice. So here I am in sunny Bangkok. Lucky we only had a couple of minutes. So this is Joseph Luzza in Bangkok and Mr. Vince Locissano in sunny Melbourne. You can go ahead, Vince. Sunny Melbourne, 42 degrees here today in Bangkok.
Yeah, well, we had about a quarter of that here in Melbourne. I think it was about 10 degrees or 11 degrees for most of the day. But it was a bleak, black and wintry old day in Melbourne today, that's for sure, Easter Monday. But we've had an absolute feast of football over the last 5 days, haven't we? And good evening to all of our viewers out there. And
in internet land. And I promise one day I'll get the beginning right. I promise.
You better practice.
I will. I better practice. I always forget to hit now that I've got all the intro music and all that, I just automatically assume that it goes live. But anyway, never mind. So Vince, there's only today's Monday. There's only 3 more days till the next game, isn't there? Don't we play on Thursday?
We do. We play on Thursday, which is only 3 nights from now. So about less than 72 hours to go until we're over in Adelaide playing the Crows, and that should be an absolute blockbuster of a game to kick off the gather round that the AFL has organised. So this is the 23rd game, if you like, brought forward to round 5, and it's going to be an absolute feast of footy again over the next over about a 4-day period there. Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. There should be I think there's a couple of double headers as well over there in Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. So should be fantastic viewing over the next week or so.
I think I'll be watching every game and I'll explain why later. But first, let's get to round 4. So Vince, as I put up the scores, if you'd like to go through those for us. We started on Thursday evening.
It did start on Thursday evening, and probably my favourite match of the round, this one. I thought it was an absolute beauty, and quality football played right throughout, and it was good to see the Brisbane Lions get back to form, and they had a comprehensive win, imposing the first loss of the season on the Magpies, which was another good thing to see, wasn't it? 18 goals, 116 to Collingwood, 11, 17, 83. One side kicked very, very accurately for goal, the other didn't, and that proved to be crucial in the end. A 33-point win to Brisbane. Then, of course, we had our game, which we'll go through after, but then we had
Saturday
4 games on Saturday. The Adelaide Crows were victorious over the Fremantle Dockers over there at the Adelaide Oval. The Adelaide Crows 17-9, 111 to Fremantle 10-12-72. Back here in Melbourne, we saw a really high-quality contest between Richmond and the Western Bulldogs playing the twilight game on Saturday afternoon at the MCG. And it was the Bulldogs victorious this time, 12-17, 89. Defeating Richmond 12-12-84 by only 5 points, and a crucial win for the Doggies, and that leaves Richmond lagging a bit on the ladder, which we'll go through very shortly for you. St Kilda, another big win for the Saints, 17 goals, 11, 113 to the Gold Coast Suns, 8-12-60, and they are the only undefeated team, Joe, after 4 rounds. Sorry, I shouldn't say that because we're undefeated as well, but they're the only team with 4 wins on the board. Let's put it that way. Then, of course, we had a titanic struggle between the Sydney Swans and Port Adelaide, with both sides feeling like they'd won after the final siren. A kick after the siren. It looked accurate. It looked for all money like the Swans were going to pinch it after the siren, but the kick just fell short, didn't it? So that left Port Adelaide winning the game 9-12-66 to Sydney 9-10-64. Yesterday, Easter Sunday, we saw the Bombers at 11 goals, 22, very inaccurate kicking. Could have cost them the match if they weren't careful. but in the end proved too good for the GWS Giants, 11-9-75. Over at Optus Stadium in Perth, we saw the dominant team so far after 4 rounds, Melbourne, in my opinion. 19 goals, 12, 126, doubling the score of West Coast Eagles, 9-9-63. And today, a huge turnaround in the second half for Geelong after being down by 9 points at halftime, slamming on 10 goals to 0 in the third quarter, and then another 5 goals to 1 in the last to run out 82-point winners, 19-13, 127 to Hawthorn, 6-9-45, and languishing at the bottom of the table.
Yes. Now, before we get to our game, Vince, I want to introduce someone that's well known to our viewers.
Well, he's a regular now.
He's
he's
Blue
officially
Sunday's
a regular.
Have a look at that smiling face. Butter wouldn't melt in his mouth in those days, would it?
Look at those beautiful black locks on top of his head too.
Red nose. Gee. So we're talking about Carlton Premiership player of 1979, Peter Brown. So there's his highlights. Played 1976 to 1980. Debuted in round 12, 1976 against Collingwood. Gee, he was a young lad, 17 years and 244 days. He was the 860th player to represent Carlton. 55 games in total, 35 of them at Carlton, 42 goals, 38 at Carlton. His last game was round 12. I must ask him if he's still 6'1" and if he's still 90 kgs.
He was very young when he finished up, wasn't he? Only 23 years and not even 24 years of age. He wore number 41 at Carlton, and premiership player, playing at full forward in 1979, a famous premiership. And
moved to the
he was actually awarded.
Vince.
Sorry?
Moved to the back line in that game famously when Alex Jesaulenko went down. And I didn't know. Peter can explain. I wonder what he got for the reserves best clubman award. I don't know. Does that mean he organised the end of season trip or whatever? But I don't know. But here he is, Blue Sunday's own Peter Brown. Welcome, Peter.
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Vince. How are you both?
Peter.
Happy Easter to you, Vince. Happy Easter to our viewers, and
thank you, Pete.
And looking forward to a bit of commentary on the game.
Now, Peter, what did you do to deserve the reserves best clubman? What happened there? Why the reserves best clubman?
To be honest with you, it was in my very first year of playing there. And I think they gave it to me because I used to frighten hell out of the coach every time that he was addressing everybody because I was yelling. And I think they thought that we better give this bloke something to shut him up. And as a result of that, I actually got a travel rug.
A travel rug.
A travel rug.
Travel rug. That's why you still pray out for a picnic, Vince.
and Vince, if he was a wog, it'd still be in the plastic wrapper it came in today.
No, it's not in the plastic. I still got it, though.
That's only if the rug was over the top of his lounge suite, Joe.
Of course, it would have been, which had the plastic.
I use it now for a nanny rug. So, in those cold days when I'm in front of the telly watching.
Well, I'll tell you what, Peter, I hope you've washed it because it's approaching 50 years of age, that rug.
It's well loved. Hey, don't laugh. I did an interview with Mike Fitzpatrick on one of these shows, and he was sitting there with the nanny rug and a cup of tea, of all things. And I thought, okay. So
that's what happens when you hit 70, Joe.
I guess. So everyone, please feel free to comment. We've got Gina and John Renman in the house, some of our regular viewers. So Peter and Vince, on Friday, Good Friday, this is our first Good Friday game, and I think it was sold out, something like 48,000 people. We saw
close
Carlton,
to 50, actually. I think it was 49 and something.
We saw Carlton triumph just. Peter and I have had a bit of a chat about this over the course of off air. But Vince, please go through the scores if you may.
Yeah, well, Carlton in the end proved too good. 16 goals, 11, 107 to North Melbourne's 11, 18, 84. They actually had 2 more scoring shots than Carlton, but they were inaccurate, and we were a little more accurate than they were. Quarter-by-quarter scores. In fact, North Melbourne held a 1-goal lead at quarter time. We pegged that back to only 2 points at half-time, and the game was in the balance. And I think the third quarter proved pivotal with Carlton putting the foot to the accelerator. And after North Melbourne, I think, got the first goal of the quarter, I think then Carlton kicked the next 6 and went into three-quarter time with a commanding lead of 25 points, and then kicked away again in the last quarter, kicking the first 4 goals. The first 5 goals, I think. And then North Melbourne coming back to score the last 4 goals of the game. So I think Carlton at one stage had a 46-point lead in the last quarter, but took the foot off the accelerator and conceded the last 4 goals to only win by 23 in the end, but a very comfortable 23. I think the scoreboard probably flattered North a little bit in the end.
Okay, so before we actually discuss the match, there's some stats
before I finish, I'll just quickly go through the goal kickers. Charlie Curnow, 6 goals, 2. Harry Mackay, 4 goals, 1 for Carlton. And young Jesse Motlop, 2 goals, 1 as well. And single goal kickers were Corey Durden with 1. Tom De Koning, 1. And who else we got here? Josh Honey with 1, and Jack Silvani with 1 as well. North Melbourne, 3 goals, 4 to Zerha. He was quite inaccurate in front of goal. Could have kicked a lot more goals than 3. Stevenson, 3 goals straight. Then singles to Taylor, Curtis, Powell, Phillips, and Simpkin. Okay. So they were the goal kickers.
So here are some of the major stats. I'll let you guys go through them. So the first one is disposals. We got 392 to 379. So I guess that's pretty even. And the
North Melbourne, by the way, North Melbourne's on the left-hand side being the home team, and Carlton's on the right.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Vince. So pretty even in the effective disposals, in the percentage-wise, even the numbers. We had more kicks. They had more handballs. Free kicks, pretty even. Anything to discuss there? Either Peter or Vince? Anything catches your drift or anything you want to say?
I think a lot of our handballs were under pressure, weren't they? Whereas North's were a lot clearer and a lot cleaner.
They tended to hand pass as much as they kicked, if you'll have a look at those stats. And they clearly had a game plan to hand pass the ball to each other as they were transitioning it from defence into the forward line, whereas we had around about 100 more kicks than hand passes. And I think in that third quarter, it was quite telling where we opened the game up and started to be a bit more daring in the second half. I felt that the first half we were just hopeless in how we were transitioning the ball. And
absolutely.
And in fact, we did not use the corridor once in the first half, which is quite a telling statistic.
About that. But we can talk about that in a minute.
The third quarter, we were a lot more imposing. I think free kicks were pretty even.
Yeah. The next one is contested. We'll go back to the effective disposals as well. But contested possessions pretty even. Marks pretty even.
Marks we clearly outmarked them.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at
17 to 74.
Sorry, I'm looking up here. Yeah, you're right.
And contested marks again. We saw examples where Harry and Charlie, even around the ground, were taking marks, and also Mitch McGovern and players like that, Wiedering in the back line, were taking marks, contested marks as well. So I think aerially we certainly held sway. Even uncontested marks, we had a clear advantage.
Go ahead, Pete.
Interestingly enough, up to half time, all of our 3 backmen, I think there was Sard, Wiedering, and Cowan, I think it is. I think they're our highest possession getters up to half time. And then after half time, we started to control more of the middle of the ground. And a lot of and you were right, Vince, in a lot of our forward move in the first half, they were more skipping around the boundary rather than through the corridor. And as a result of that, North, I thought anyway, had more and gained more ground through the middle of the ground rather than around the flanks. And that was probably reflected in the fact that we were marking more in the air around the flanks rather than straight through the middle of the ground.
Yeah, I'll tell you a worry though is like Mark's inside 50. I mean, we've got two key forwards. I don't think we move the ball down quick enough to them. Like 9 to 12, really. Between Charlie and Harry, they should be taking a lot more marks. But again, we can discuss that later on. The next slide, around the ground, hit outs, pretty even. Clearances. Now, here's one that surprises you, me, most people. We got smashed in the clearances, 41 to 30.
Mm.
And Peter and I had a bit of a discussion about this off air, which will go a bit on later. Peter, you can bring up the point that you want to make about our reigning Brownlow medalist and captain.
Sure.
Clangers, 61 to 60. Yeah, I think again, these are great stats, but it doesn't tell you where the clangers happen. Like there's a couple of times going into the 50 where Fisher and Silvani just turned the ball over. And, the ball just rocketed straight back and resulted in scores. Tackles. Yes, go, Pete.
May I just go back to one point? When you said the hit-outs were roughly around about the same, I would like to see what effective hit-outs, Goldstein, for instance, as opposed to what our hit-outs were like.
Do you mean hit-outs to advantage, I think they call it, don't they? They've got all these technical terms these days.
Yep.
Let me see if I can see that. I did see that stat somewhere. Tackles 52 to 50. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the stats. There's nothing here. The next one. Let me go to the next one. The last slide. Here you go. Vince, you can go through that while I'm looking for that stat.
Well, again, as I've already said,
Scoring.
They had more shots at goal than we did. Inside 50s were pretty even. Kicking efficiency pretty similar. Shooting accuracy, we were a lot more accurate than they were in the end. And I think to take back your point, Peter, I was just having a look at the efficiency on our two ruckmen. Tom de Koning had 11 disposals at an efficiency of 54%, and Mark Pitnet had also 11 disposals, 27% effective. Only three of them were effective. So apart from the hit-outs not being all that effective, because North Melbourne actually won the clearances, even their own disposals are very inefficient. So I think there's an area there that they really need to clean up. And it could hurt us against better opposition.
Yes, I think so.
I thought that we looked a lot better when Pitnet was actually up against Goldstein. I thought we were actually a lot more efficient in that area there rather than, and this is no reflection on young Tom, but his ruck work, particularly more so against a very experienced ruckman like Goldstein, I thought that was quite telling. The other thing is too that Goldstein is predominantly a left-hand tap ruckman rather than in a situation where he's and I don't mean this derogatory, but I'm going to say it anyway. But poor old Tom looks like he's all arms and legs. Pitnet seems to use his body a lot more efficiently. And as a result of that, both Goldstein and Pitnet, I think, probably nullified each other. But when Goldstein went in there, they looked a lot more damaging than what when Pitnet was in there.
Yeah,
Peter?
well, in the end, the hit-outs, I think Goldstein got 32 and Pitnet got 30, whereas young De Conning only had single digits for hit-outs. I think he only got 6 or 8 hit-outs. So, I think we nullified Goldstein, but he was a more effective ruckman in terms of what he did individually.
Very, very sad. He's bloody 30-something years old. We should be
35.
Well, we should be effective. Peter, let's have a chat about our midfield and the points that we were talking about off air. So the floor is yours.
Well, our midfield, particularly more so in the first and second quarters, because they weren't controlling the corridor of the game, they seemed to be getting smashed around. And the point I made with Joe earlier is that our skipper, Patrick Cripps, he looked like he was either carrying an injury or he was disinterested, to be honest with you. I thought his work, particularly in centre clearances and stuff like that, he was always under pressure. I think you said to me the other day, Vince, that he had 28 or 29 possessions. I think there was about 6 or 7 kicks and about 20 odd handballs. But a lot of those handballs were under enormous pressure, and they were more handballs to get out of trouble more than creating an opportunity. I thought that Sarah's game, I think he got a whack in the bloody in the eye, which blew up pretty quickly. But
he did.
He did. He got
in the first quarter.
The don't argue from Zerha, didn't he?
Yeah. And I thought that his game was looking better than it was last week. Anyway, and I thought he contributed a little bit more from there. But our midfielders have got to start to create an opportunity through that corridor, and they're not doing it. And their work around, particularly ruck play. Now, I mentioned this to Joe before. I was either in the second or third quarter. It might have been the third quarter, I think. Stevenson had a shot at goal and kicked a goal from crumbing off ruck play. And if you looked at our players and stopped the actual footage, you would see that our players were facing their opponent rather than looking where the ball was going. And what Stevenson did was able to slip out, and he had clear area in front of him. And when the ball came to ground, all he did was pick it up and snap the goal. And our guys were all running around trying to be in a situation where they were they weren't necessarily trying to create. They were more trying to defend, but defend area rather than be in a situation where they could create on from that point. I think there's still a lot of work that our midfield has got to do. I think there is for them to create opportunities for our what we call the Twin Towers, if you want to call them that. Although one's going to be missing coming this week. I think they need to be able to create more from opportunities from either centre clearances or from throw-in clearances.
Peter, do you think that the inclusion of Sam Walsh and probably Matthew Kennedy and possibly you could throw in Blake Acres on the wing, do you think that'll change the midfield structure for the better? Do you think?
Go on, Joe. Sorry.
No, I'm just thinking who are we going to play in the mid? We're going to have obviously you can't play them all at once, so you're going to have Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh, then Acres is out on a wing, but then you've also got Kennedy, Chera,
and Hewitt.
So, do we have too many? What's your thoughts?
No, they'll end up interchanging one or two off the bench and giving the others a rest. So, you might start with Kennedy on the bench, or you might start with Chera on another wing, for example. Not all necessarily in the centre square. That's how they usually do it, isn't it, Brownie?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Walsh before. You mentioned Kennedy and Acres. Now, for a starter, if you're expecting Walsh to come back and be a world beater, you're kidding yourself, because,
Yeah.
you know, he's had back surgery. So he's in a
Yeah.
situation where he's going to be, you know, it's going to take him at least 3 or 4 games to get into it. Really,
They might
Yeah.
nurse him by putting him on a wing and telling him not to get involved in centre square stuff.
I
think
might even
what
put
they'll
him as
do-
a sub.
I think what they'll do is they'll manage him where that's concerned. I would expect Kennedy to come in and have more of an impact than any of the other two. Akers is a reasonable player, but he's got to be out so that he can run. And not necessarily in with the crunch stuff. And I, to be honest with you, I'm not really convinced that our midfield, as it stands now, Shearer, Hewitt, and Cripps. I'm not convinced that is going to be our answer until such time as Walsh starts to run himself into some form and Kennedy comes back and hits it hard. I don't think we're going to have a situation where they're going to be able to control the game from the midfield.
The three that you mentioned lack pace, to be honest. They're
You're
not
talking
quick.
about Walsh, Kennedy, and
No. Cripps, Hewitt, and Shearer. They're not quick.
You know, to be perfectly honest with you, what I would rather do is I'd run Cripps off a half forward line or a half back line. To be honest with you, I just think that he's probably been smashed around for 3 or 4 years now, and you know, whilst he might have a 41 game possession one week, you can guarantee he's not going to saddle up and have another blinder the week after. As I said, he looked tired. He actually looked like he was in a situation where he was either sore, disinterested, or wanted to bloody go and have Easter somewhere. And look, I know I'm being critical here, but as I have said in the past, he is our leader. He is our captain. He is the one that everyone turns to when things get tough. Now, you know, if he's not interested, who else is going to step up to the plate? You know, we spoke about this the other day, Vince, that, you know, the only person that's on the ground that looks like he's got, you know, half a go in him is Charlie. He kicks a goal and, you know, the two guns come up. And, you know, he's prepared to really, you know, put
he's
it
the
out
barometer. There. He's the barometer of the team at the moment, isn't he?
Absolutely. Too. And I said last week that I didn't think he'd saddle up. So he you know, or you didn't expect him to kick another bag. Well, he did. Good. Harry, you know, contributed. However, and I still like that thing where they're interchanging between the two of them. I thought
that they actually combined a lot better, Peter, this week compared to last week against GWS, where they were seemingly getting in each other's road. I thought that they actually combined a lot better against North Melbourne and were certainly getting out of each other's space as they said on I think there was a Foxtel show where one of the commentators was saying that we've got a rooster problem and we've got 2 big roosters in the forward line that are getting in each other's way in the barn house, and that can cause a lot of problems.
I'd rather have that problem than not have it.
They seem to give each other a lot more space this time, and one was working up the ground and the other one would be staying back inside 50 a lot more. So I think they've certainly worked that one out a lot better.
Well, one of the things that probably, well, for mine anyway, Charlie tends to be timing his leap and his run a lot better than what Harry seems to be. Unless Harry can get a clear run at it. There was a couple of times he overran the ball, or he ran under the ball, I should say. And I just felt that probably his height, he shouldn't be running under the ball. He should be taking the ball at the highest point when he's marking, but he's not. For some reason or other, his timing's out. And you know, the disappointing part about it is that we're in a situation here where we've got a very good opportunity to have 2 players that could possibly change a game situation, but they're inconsistent. The only one that's actually consistent at this stage is Charlie, and the other bloke is too hit and miss for my liking. and he tends to find himself. Now, you mentioned something about the two forwards. In the first quarter and a half, they didn't have a massive influence on the game, right? The ball was being delivered differently, etc., etc. Then what happened was that we started to take some ascendancy in the air. Now, I mentioned to you the other day, Vince, in the third quarter, when we actually kicked, I think it was 6 or 7 unanswered goals, that 6'6" and 6'8" blokes are always 6'6" and 6'8" when things start to get a little bit tiring, and that is predominantly what's going to happen with the two forwards in that situation. What concerns me, though, is that Durnan and our small forwards, I know Motlop kicked 2, but Durnan only kicked the 1. Now, for whatever reason, if Charlie and Harry aren't on, who the hell's going to kick our goals? Because our midfield sure ain't going to do it.
It is a concern that our so-called high half forwards or taller half forwards are not really hitting the scoreboard very much. I mean, they might get 1 goal. That seems to be about as much as they get, whether it's Jack Martin, who's not playing at the moment, whether it's Jack Silvani, Zach Fisher. The smaller forwards are getting a little bit more, like Durden and Motlop, and, of course, Owies was injured for this match against North Melbourne, but he scored a couple the previous week. But, yeah, I think you're right. If we don't get – I mean, what did we get? 10 goals out of Curnow and Mackay not too many more.
Well, Tony Amadeo has said Zach Fisher, Jack Silvani do not kick enough goals. We've got no tall forward,
there you go.
Third tall forward. And that may be where Peter's suggestion where you put Patrick Cripps on a half forward line after the centre bounce may come in, because he's 6'4". He's got a presence.
Can I make a point about this, please?
No.
I think – thanks, Joe. I think Cripps is almost timing his energies a little bit smarter these days. Don't get me wrong, it's not that he's not trying in the first half, but I think when the game needed to be won and when we needed some real leadership, that's when he played his best football. And I think he's probably been doing that in the first 4 weeks. I don't know if you see it that way, Brownie, but I just sense that he's almost putting the foot down on the accelerator a bit more when we really need that injection of leadership. And I don't know that he's just going, full throttle for the whole match anymore. I think he can't probably do that now at age 28. I think he's being a bit smarter in how he's using his energy. Do you see it that way, or do you think he's, as you said it before, he sometimes looks disinterested?
Look, if he's in a situation where he's being smarter about what he does, then put him up forward. Right?
Yeah.
Put him in the forward line.
Like Geelong uses Dangerfield. Sometimes they throw him up forward and he kicks goals. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you have a think about it, right, now this is going to happen over in Adelaide. You're going to have, now that Harry's out, that buggers up our 2 talls. But we're in a situation where we'll need another target in the forward line, and at 6'4", Charlie's at 6'6", 6'7". So you'll have to substitute it, and I reckon that Cripps is going to be your answer. Jack's not the answer. As I said before, Jack.
What about TDK?
Jack's going to be our link man more than anything else, or in and off the bench. But you need another target up forward. And what will happen is that Adelaide will target Charlie. I'm telling you now.
What about Tom De Koning, Peter?
Sorry?
Do you think he could be Tom De Koning? Do you think he could be the third tall? Or not really?
To replace Harry, if Harry ends up being suspended?
Well, no, we're talking about having 3 talls. I mean,
I think Peter's making the point, if Harry ends up being suspended against Adelaide, we need another tall forward. And are you suggesting De Koning could be that one, Joe?
Well, he has to be. He has to be. But I'm talking about if Charlie and Harry are playing, what forward structure do you think we should have? And it can go to both of you. Because I don't think Jack's not tall and not short, right? I hate these people that go, he can play tall and he can play short. What does that even mean, right? You're either a marking forward or you're not. Sorry,
Correct.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're 5'8" or 6'4". You're a marking forward or you're not. Have a look at Brody Myercheck. That's what he is, right? We don't have someone like that. You know, Jack is very inconsistent. I love Jack. He gives you 100% every week, right? There's not a week where he can come off the field and say, I didn't give my all, because he does. But sometimes it's just not there. And we don't have, like Peter said earlier, if Harry doesn't kick goals and if Charlie doesn't kick goals, where are we going to get him? I can't rely on Fisher. Jack Martin, who even knows where he is, who even knows when he's coming back. Do we throw Mitch McGovern up forward this week? I mean, you know, or at any time. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Mitch McGovern's got a suspect hamstring. So he's going to be in a situation where he'll be lucky to come up. You mentioned before that we've got 3 days to come up here, right? So, I mean, McGovern, at best, he may come up. If he doesn't, then you've got a hole in the back line there where you need someone behind the ball. You mentioned the Conning before. Well, that's where I'd throw him. I'd throw him behind the ball. And as I said, use Cripps up forward and use Charlie up forward as the two talls, and then have Silvani running around trying to make a bloody nuisance of himself. So, and in that situation, at least then we can cover the holes that are created.
Yeah. Does anyone know? Someone's asking, have they appealed Harry's suspension? I don't know, because
there's nothing on the Carlton website. I thought we had to let them know by 11 o'clock this morning, but maybe it's been extended to Tuesday. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
maybe.
There's nothing on the Carlton website about it.
I think it's tomorrow, because today was supposed to be a public holiday. I think it's tomorrow that you've got to let them know. Right. But why would you?
I suspect they will. I suspect they will appeal it. And
they will.
That they actually.
I think
they'll actually get it downgraded successfully back to a fine, on the basis that it's not medium impact, it's low impact.
He should get a week for stupidity.
No, well, that's what I'm suspecting. I'm not saying it should be. I'm not saying it's justified, but we do tend to do pretty well at tribunal appearances and appeals. Our last two Brownlow medalists got away with offences that they could very well have been suspended for.
Yeah,
but have a think about this, and you could use the excuse it was a brain fade, it was this, it was that, it was everything else. He's in a situation where he's got a big responsibility now, and the responsibility is that he's got to be able to be creative between him and Charlie. Now, if he goes out, that means the synergy between the two goes missing for a week, right? Now, we all know that players play on confidence, and they all play, you know, when they're in a situation where they're up and about. What he did was stupid. There was no need for it. The game was at a time when you know,
it was well under control.
Hit somebody for the sake of hitting somebody and taking them out, rather than be in a situation where it's tight. Not when we're 40-odd points up or whatever the figure was at the time. And the guy that he hit, if you look at the footage of it, he had his arms straight out in front of him like that, right? So he knew he was going to make contact with him. But the stupid thing is, the player he made contact with, he's about 10 inches taller than him, or 6 inches taller than him.
It was young Cheezel, the young recruit from North Melbourne.
Yeah. So, for my mind, that's selfish. It's a selfish
unnecessary
act, and it's in a situation where it now could potentially. Now, just think about this: if that was a preliminary final, and we had to get into a grand final, right? And you were relying upon that, you'd be in a situation where you'd be going, "You're an idiot."
Yeah,
you seriously are an idiot.
Yeah,
you potentially have cost us a grand final.
One thing I noticed, Peter, when you have a look at the goal kickers, I mentioned them earlier, apart from Curnow 6 and Mackay 4. And, of course, we kicked 16 in total.
16.
So we only had 6 goals from the other forwards. Do you know that we did not get 1 goal from our midfielders? Not one.
No.
Surely that has to change. If we're going to beat Adelaide next Thursday, well, this Thursday, and in fact, if we're going to start beating some really good quality opposition in the coming weeks, the midfielders have to start learning to kick goals as well.
Well, they've got to. What tends to happen with our midfielders is that they're probably getting most of their possessions between centre and centre half back, right? In that arc there. So effectively, they're not actually in a situation where they're running forward and creating some space down further. What they're doing is they're going, well, we've got the 2 talls up there. We'll just let them play the game, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to being in that situation. And the other thing that happens is that we don't seem to create space in our forward line very well. And I'm talking about having, even if you've got the 2 talls, leading and splitting and creating an opportunity within that centre area. And one of the things that I did notice is that most of the possessions between Harry and Charlie, they were actually taken on the wing or between wing and
half forward.
And they were kicking in long on a one-on-one situation in the goal square most of the time. So, and if that's not our avenue to goal for whatever reason, if those guys are not on, then we have to create that area in that area there between say halfway between full forward and centre half forward.
And I know one of the reasons you're saying that, because back in your day, in the late 70s and early 80s, when we had something called the Mosquito Fleet, that's exactly what they used to do. The McCluers and the Browns would lead to the pockets, and all of these midfielders would come streaming through the middle and clean up the ball and kick goal after goal after goal, didn't they?
Well, what we used to do is we used to play a thing called the diamond, right? Now, the diamond was from fullback in the Southie. He used to kick out between, say, centre and wing. Yep. In between that area, and then we used to channel the ball through the centre half forward to forward area.
Yes.
Now, all that meant was that creates a space in the middle, right? Now, what we were doing also is that we were also using the corridor when we could, but if the corridor wasn't there, the diamond was the thing that we used to use, and the diamond was the one that created most of our opportunities because the ball used to fall halfway between centre half forward and full forward.
Yeah,
interesting, Peter, very interesting stuff.
Peter, I know you're not the coach. You're the coach at the Carlton Football Club, right? I've just made you the coach. Do you see why we keep going down the wings and then never bring it in? What would you be doing different? I don't know if Michael Voss's game plan is just go out wide and then bring it in. We never use the corridor, right? Is the reason we don't use it is because we can't defend it, or we don't know how to use it? What's your thoughts?
Well, several times, particularly more so in the first half of that game between North and Carlton, what was happening was that the North Melbourne players were actually controlling the middle of the ground. If you have a look at where our players were and where the North Melbourne players were, our guys were getting sucked up through the wings rather than sucked up through the middle of the ground, which meant that we weren't creating opportunities through the middle. Now, interestingly enough, the week before, and everyone's worked this out now, that as soon as McGovern gets a ball on the half-back line, he's looking to put it in board every time. So now we're in a situation where we've got to be a little bit more creative because they're now cutting that off. If you look at Sard, right, when he comes off half-back, and this is what I was saying last week when our backs were getting sucked up the ground, what was happening was that they were more probably looking at what was happening up the ground rather than defending the territory in which they have to defend and get back quickly enough to be able to cut off any scoring opportunities. But we're in a situation here where I believe that we're not getting enough through the middle purely and simply because we're not creating the area there that they need. They're focusing on actually being in a situation where they either kick down the line, and it was interesting because the thing that I picked up straight away on the first quarter and a half was that North were playing through the middle of the ground and creating that way, whereas we were stop-start along the actual boundary of the ground. And this is the thing that Carlton don't do. And I mentioned it, I think, last week. We don't control the tempo of the game. We seem to be in a situation where we look like we're all exciting. Saad might break off from the half-back line, and then it's all of a sudden it's stopped. Why? Are we not working hard enough? There are two ways of defending. You actually defend when you're attacking. Now, by that I mean is that you must have overlap happening. You've got players that are running down the ground, but you need players to fall in behind so that you can actually defend the attack. I know that sounds stupid, but it's not. Because when you're doing that, what's happening is that you're able to create space by being able to have people come in behind and people going down the ground. Now, our guys, we look fantastic off a half-back line when things go our way. When things don't go our way, we get caught out. Too many times.
And here's a comment from Wayne that I totally agree with. We need to learn to lock the ball in our forward line. Comes out too easy, and we look terrible when that happens, doesn't it? We just turn it over.
I think our stoppages in the forward line, me personally, I don't think our forwards work hard enough to actually to lock it in.
And here's a comment from Petra. Second efforts, chasing and tackling by forwards is critical, and that includes Harry and Charlie. So, yes, I agree with you too. I don't think they work. They look like they're always working hard, but
Peter, on a positive.
Sorry. Interestingly enough, North Melbourne. You mentioned that before, Vince, when you said, yes, you had a pretty good day out there. My immediate opponent on that day was David Dench, and I rated David Dench as probably one of the best fullbacks around.
Absolutely, yeah.
However, he was also a creator by running off, and my job was, if I didn't get the ball, I made sure he didn't get the ball because he was going to carve you up if you didn't. Now, I think this is where, some of the comments that are coming through now, we're in a situation where we need to be able to create more opportunity in our forward line by being able to lock it down in the forward. So the forwards have got to work harder in defence than what they do in attack.
Well, apparently Durden was our leading tackler in the forward line. So there you go.
Can I just make a point also, just on a positive note, that what I saw in the second half, and I'd be interested to hear your comments about what we did well in the second half, as opposed to the first, is that we took the ball coast to coast quite a bit. In fact, we scored about 5, maybe even 6 goals that way, where we took it from basically full back right through to a goal-scoring situation without North Melbourne getting their hands on it. And that's something quite foreign, really. We haven't done a lot of that. And when we're really building momentum and getting on a bit of a roll, that's what tends to happen with us. And I thought it was quite impressive, that third quarter, how we did that. It's just a shame that we can't seem to do it for longer periods of time. And then we take the foot off the pedal and start to go to sleep and let the opposition get multiple goals in a row on their own, like North Melbourne did in that last 10 minutes.
That was very disappointing. I thought that any opportunity for our side to build some percentage had slipped through our fingers purely and simply because we went to sleep. We thought the job was done halfway through the final quarter. Now, clearly, I think we got to something like 16 goals to 7, and I think we just thought that's it.
Yeah,
we've done it. We can just take the foot off the pedal now.
Might cost us in the end.
Interestingly enough, we always thought the third quarter was the premiership quarter. Well, whilst you can play well in that third quarter, the premiership quarter, it's not over until the fat lady sings. And it's been, and Collingwood last year was an example of that, where they were winning games in the last 10, 15 minutes of a quarter, in that last quarter, and they tend to be running. And I think McRae said it, if they run long enough and hard enough, eventually it's going to come your way. Well, for us to run out a game on 4 quarters, that definitely didn't happen on Friday. Definitely didn't happen, and I was disappointed with that. I thought that was a wonderful opportunity that went begging, and I thought that we looked average in that last 15 minutes of that game. If that game had been closer and North Melbourne had a kick straighter, that would have put scoreboard pressure on us, and we would have been in a situation where we would have been under the microscope and under the blowtorch.
Under the pump.
I would have been interested to see what was happening. Interestingly enough, though, in one of the actual centre clearances that we got, I think Charlie actually threw himself in the middle at the time.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that was something that came out from the bench or not, but I noticed that he was in amongst the clearance. And there's nothing wrong with that. You could throw him in the centre and put Cripps at full forward if you wanted to. In that situation, you could throw that around a bit.
Interesting. Before we get on to votes, just a couple of players I want to discuss. And I hate naming individuals, right? But there's one, I don't know how he gets a game. And I'm not even going to say his name. Number 4. Right?
I think they call him LOB.
The Little River Band. Don't get me wrong. I think he tries very hard. No one goes out there not to try. Okay, I just don't think he's got the smarts as a footballer. I don't see him do anything clever. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He's been playing off a wing, hasn't he? Every time he seems to.
He's been a
sub.
He's been our sub for the first 3 rounds. This was his first full game.
Yeah, but even when he comes on as a sub, like against Richmond, he kicks it to 3-on-1. I mean, give me a break. We're 6 points up. Here's Michael Voss saying, we've been really trying hard over the summer to fix our woes from last year so that we don't lose games. And here's Lockie O'Brien, who comes out and within 1 minute destroys all those words, kicks it straight to 3-on-1 and Harry falls. And his foot skill, I know the guy's got pace. He's quick. I never see him use it. I never see him with the ball. I never see him hit targets. I don't know. Maybe I'm watching.
What are your thoughts?
Maybe Peter? I just don't like him. I don't know.
I'd actually throw him back to the 2s and actually get him to play up forward, as opposed to playing on a wing, and see what he's got as a small forward. To be honest with you, or a tall forward, if you want to call it. Or a medium forward, sorry.
My understanding was that he came to us as a midfielder, that we actually recruited him.
Him and Paddy Dow. Him and Paddy Dow as midfielders. So, and there's another ways to tell. Maybe Paddy Dow needs to move like Will Setterfield, because he just seems stuck in a rut. I mean, Will Setterfield's been quite good at Essendon, right? Because they didn't have any big body mids. And let's face it, he was like 4th in line at Carlton behind Cripps, Hewitt.
Well, for your information, Joe, I went to the VFL game on Friday afternoon to see the Carlton Reserves have a commanding win, their first win of the year against North Melbourne at Arden Street, where there was no grandstand, no undercover for the rain, and
good.
Portable toilets, and only one food vendor who was a Greek souvlaki vendor.
Where was it?
Flogging them off at $20 a pop. I'll tell you what, there's no facilities at all there. The only consolation is that they don't charge you to get in. But anyway, so went and watched the game, and again, Paddy Dow would have been up there in at least the top 1 or 2 players on the ground for Carlton, and I just don't think Michael Voss rates him as a potential midfielder for the seniors. It doesn't matter how well he plays in the twos. He just seems to be on the outer. And I dare say that at the end of this year, when his contract comes to an end again, this time rather than signing him up on yet another 12-month contract, I think this time both parties will probably agree that it's best to part company and let him go wherever he wants to go. If you're not going to play him in the seniors, he's not going to have any value on the trade table. So you might as well just let him go.
So why extend his contract last year by a year?
I think they thought or assumed that they'd be able to trade him. That's what I think, and I don't think there was any interest from any other clubs. That's my understanding. Anyway, it's another discussion for another day. We haven't got time tonight to discuss all that. But one other player I'd like to raise, if you don't mind, Joe, with Peter, is one that I've actually heard a lot of good comments about over these last few days in watching social media shows and listening to radio programs and what have you. Mitch McGovern, a much maligned player at Carlton. A lot of people think he had his best game ever for Carlton on Friday. Now, I must have been watching a different game. I thought he got a lot of the ball. I'm not sure it was his best game. He did some nice things, but at times he didn't, in my view. But what's your view on Mitch McGovern and his future at Carlton?
Me personally, I don't think McGovern's up to it. To be honest.
Okay.
I mean, they tried him up forward. That didn't work. They've tried him as an intercept backman, and that certainly hasn't, in my opinion, it hasn't worked. And as a defending backman, I think he's too loose.
Yeah. So you don't think he's that intercepting defender that they're basically touting him as, and obviously they're playing him in that role, aren't they, to intercept the ball in defence? He does take some intercept marks. There's no question about that. But does he use it the way we want him to use it?
I don't think he uses it effectively.
People are disagreeing with you. We've got Sammy. Gov was awesome, getting better every week. Jesse, you definitely were watching a different game. What are you on, mate? So hang on, here's another one.
He's got some fans.
You can't be serious. Mitch is that backman, got short memory. Okay. I suppose we're all entitled to an opinion, and that's what we like. I mean, Peter's got an opinion. Vince has got an opinion. We don't have to agree.
It's in the last year of his contract, so people have forgotten about the first 5 years of no service.
First 4.
Or Mate, 4 years, whatever it was.
That's what happens at Carlton. You just have to perform in your last year, sign a new contract, and then you're on easy street. Look,
seems that
I
way.
hope he gets better. I just was, to be honest, I was just rolling my eyes when I heard he's gone off with a hamstring soreness. And I thought, oh, here we go. Just when we're starting to get some efficiency out of him. But
well, look, he took a total of 6 marks. He had 7 score involvements. Took 1 contested mark out of his 6. So the other 5 were uncontested. He had 3 clangers, 1 inside 50 and 5 rebound 50s. So I'm not real sure. His disposal efficiency was quite high at over 80%. 22 effective disposals out of his 27. So he's probably had a better than average game, Peter. But, I mean, you can only see it as you see it. And if you didn't think he played all that well, then, we're all entitled to our opinion, aren't we?
Mate, that's what I like about the show, where we can say whatever we want. I don't rate Fisher, and other people are going to jump on me like Rocco.
Well, see, there's another one. Now, Fisher had 28 possessions. Mind you, only 9 kicks, 19 hand passes. Did not hit the scoreboard. Is he doing his job?
Well, I don't think he does enough when he doesn't have the ball.
That's the thing. I think what happens with someone like Fisher is that they actually have a possession and then their job's done. They're not actually moving to the next creative opportunity. And the good players particularly, and you would have noticed that a couple of the northern boys, some of the young ones, they were involved in a possession in the back line and bugged me dead if they didn't bob up in the bloody half forward line in another possession. Yeah. And I think that's where our guys don't do enough of that. I don't think they're creating enough moving up the ground.
Yeah.
You know,
Before
when
we
you
get to
said
the
that he
sorry,
had, you know, McGovern had, you know, how many ever possessions he had. Are they possessions in terms of kicking sideways or this sort of thing?
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what these numbers don't always show you, do they? They don't show you necessarily what type of possessions they are, or whether they're just, you know,
well,
sometimes you can
he
have
had
four
one
hand
inside
You
50.
can have 4 hand passes within 15 seconds sometimes, and you know none of the 4 have done anything. So you can only watch the match as you see it, and again, sometimes they turn it over, don't they? He had his fair share of clangers.
Well,
yeah.
well, you know, someone like in my mind, if you've got someone like McGovern that's supposed to be playing that intercept role, he's got to
Like
be
his
able
brother
to be
does at West
creating an
Coast. That's what they're
opportunity.
trying to turn him into.
Yeah, but he's got to be able to create something further into our forward line.
Yeah.
Not sideways or possibly not the short kick in. The easiest way to beat a zone situation is to kick it over the top of it. Now, you know, you mentioned the 2 talls in that third quarter. If you looked at the possessions that they got and where they had their entries, they were actually kicking it over the zone. They were in a situation where they were putting it into space where we could create a scoring opportunity. And, you know, if you're in a situation where you need that type of thing coming off half back, then they've got to be able to create by being able to hit our forwards. And if they're not hitting our forwards, but just, you know, going sideways and this sort of thing, it's false economy.
Yeah. Peter, before we get on the votes and let you go, I'm sure you got better things to do on a Monday than talk to me and Vince. Petra's been asking about Ed Curnow doing a job. What do you think about Ed Curnow, what he's doing now, and what do you think his plans will be for the rest of the season?
I think they'll use Ed as a stopping role. I think they'll use him in a situation where he will predominantly be a stopper, and you know, they'll throw him onto somebody that is a dangerous type of player. And then if he's got the opportunity of being able to create, then he will. If you remember, was it last week or the week before that Ed actually kicked a goal himself, which is the first time he'd hit the scoreboard for a while. Well, you know, I would prefer to have him in the side rather than not in the side. If I had to throw up between, say, O'Brien and Ed Curnow, I'd put Ed Curnow in before him anytime.
Okay.
I think the word nullify comes to mind when you're thinking of Ed Curnow's role. His role is to nullify one of their better players. That's for sure.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't put him on Sheasel, because Sheasel had like 36 or
37
possessions.
37, and he played brilliantly, the young kid.
He's a good first-year player. He's great.
And the other one that impressed me, and I think it was great to see, in fact, the 2 number 9s going head-to-head, was Davies Uniacke. I think he's going to be something quite special, that bloke.
Yeah.
Don't
discount Zerha's game either.
He's tough. He's tough, isn't he? He's tough.
Like him. I'd like him. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the navy blue, to be honest with you. That'd be a pretty good pickup, particularly in that forward role where, you know, he hits it hard.
He's got a bit of X factor about him, hasn't he? He's got almost
a bit of mongrel.
He's almost got that Jake Stringer type impact about him, if you know what I mean. Anyway, let's keep going.
Anyway, let's get to the votes. So, Peter, your votes, please, and explain why.
Yeah, fairly obvious. Charlie, he got 3 from me. I put Sard in there as the second vote getter, and then Doherty as 1. Curnow for obvious reasons. I thought Sard's work was better than it was last week, although he's still not creating enough for me, and he's still not hurting us or hurting the opposition as much as he should be. And I thought Doherty's work this week, even though he had probably less possessions, I thought his role was quite good. The one that I didn't put in there were 2 actually. One was obviously Harry. And the reason why I didn't put Harry in is that I don't like kicking around corners, and I've said that on numerous occasions. And he screwed up 2 or 3 opportunities, of which you know, he could have either centered the ball or had a set shot. You know, when it does come off, it looks great. When it doesn't come off, it looks absolutely ludicrous. So I didn't put him in there. The other one that I didn't put in there was Wiedering. One of the things that if I was to give Wiedering a vote, he's got to impose himself a lot more than what he does, and he just does not impose himself as a general in the back line, as far as I'm concerned. So, as I said, Curnow, Sard, and Doherty.
Vince, go through yours.
Well, slightly different. Curnow I gave the 3 votes to because I thought he had the most impact on the ground of any player in terms of the outcome. Brilliant game, 6 goals, 2, and, you know, goodness knows how high he could rise in 2023. The way he's going, he's almost Brownlow medal material if he keeps this sort of thing up. And Coleman as well. Imagine having a Coleman medalist that wins the Brownlow as well. I don't think that's ever happened since probably Tony Lockett in 1987 when he won the Brownlow with John Platten. But have we seen a full forward win it since him?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Harry Mackay, I gave 2 votes to. I'll take your point about the kicking around corners and check side kicks. It's quite annoying to a lot of us. When it comes off, it looks fantastic. When it doesn't, everyone criticises. But I still felt that Harry had to start delivering. I thought he'd had some average weeks leading up to that. And I thought he really rose to the occasion against North Melbourne and played overall a very good game. Kicking 4 goals, taking 14 marks. Some of them were crucial and resulted in a lot of scores, even if he himself didn't kick it. So I gave him 2, and I actually did give a vote to Jacob Wiedering, Peter. I thought the most dangerous forward for North Melbourne was basically nullified completely on the day. I think he only got 5 possessions. I believe he did get injured. Yeah, he did get injured a bit, but I still thought that Jacob Wiedering did an admirable job on Larkey, the North Melbourne full forward.
I love his nickname, Suva. Suva Larkey.
Nick Larkey, I think is his name. But
Suva, that's what his parents should have called him.
I gave him a vote, Jacob Wiedering.
Okay, and I obviously Charlie Curnow 3. 6 goals, can't do better than that. Most dominant forward on the ground. I gave 2 to Doherty. I thought he controlled his patch quite well. He's a born leader, I think, Sam. And I heard him speaking, you know, before the game, and he's quite impressive. And I reluctantly put Harry Mackay in only because of his 4 goals. I actually thought, you guys have mentioned Wiedering. I thought Lewis Young has been our most improved player this year. He takes marks when we need him. I mean, he had 10 marks on Friday, only a couple before, only a couple less than Jacob. And I think he might be that you know, we've got the twin towers up the front, being Harry and Charlie, and I think we're starting to get a bit of a twin towers down the back with Lewis Young and Jacob Wiedering. I just hope that either one of them can assert themselves a bit more to be the general of the back line. But that's
well, those were the 2 I was tossing up my 1 vote. I was tossing up between Wiedering and Young, and I ended up giving it to Wiedering. But a special mention to Lewis Young. He did play a very, very good game.
Did well. Let's go to the leaderboard. We've got Charlie Curnow, who's had 2 brilliant games, according to us. Leading on 18. We got Sam Doherty on 10, Patrick Cripps 9, George Stewart and Lewis Young 6, Sard 5, Akers, Curnow, Nick Newman and Harry Mackay on 3. Okay, so very quickly, Peter, before we let you go. Thursday night, Carlton Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, part of the Kumbaya round or whatever you want to call it, gather round or
gather round, hold hands and sing Kumbaya as we smoke pot around the campfire.
Come to Bangkok, there's plenty of pot. Peter, who's going to win and why?
Yeah, look, I came into tonight with mixed feelings on this one. Definitely Mackay out's going to hurt us up forward. There's no doubt about that. Adelaide, for mine, in the last two games, they've shown a real resilience. The derby, if you want to call it, against Port, it was fairly tight up until about three-quarter time, and then they seemed to break it open, or just before three-quarter time. And they certainly they gave the Dockers a bit of a touch-up this round. Adelaide at home always grows an extra leg, and I think this is going to be a real test for our midfielders. I think I think Adelaide are going. Their back line isn't as great, and I don't matching up. I think now that Harry's out, the matchups are going to be a lot easier than what they were if Harry was in, to be honest with you. So that's why I'm suggesting that they use Cripps up there rather than be in a situation. Now, they could rotate Cripps and De Koning there, and the matchups will be probably a little bit harder for them. But for mine, the midfield, Adelaide seems to be getting a lot of drive through the midfield, and the players that are creating it, lesser known players, and I don't mean that derogatory by any means, but they're having a real crack. One of the things that I did want to mention is and I mentioned this to Joe before we came on air, one of the things that concerns me about the Carlton side is that if I really had to be honestly critical, is that they're not playing for one another. I think they're playing for themselves, and I just think that they need to understand what responsibility they have to, firstly, the Carlton Football Club and the jumper. And they're in a situation, and their mate that's out there. And I just don't think they're playing for one another as much as I would like to see. And I might be corrected on that, but that's my opinion, and I'm happy to hear from any of our listeners and viewers. Now, getting back to your question, Joe, I think that Carlton will win it. But it's not going to be all one-way traffic. I think Adelaide will test us. It'll be an interesting situation to see how they handle the Adelaide forwards like Tex and these guys up forward, because they have made themselves a bit of a nuisance. And Tex is just about due to kick a bag, I think.
So you'll do it against us. You
watch this space, and he'll be in a situation where the feed coming in, unless we can nullify that through the midfield, because Adelaide do actually create real good opportunities through their mids. I think, as I said before, I think Carlton will win it, but not as convincing. Not as convincing.
Vince?
Well, I actually went out to watch Geelong and Hawthorn today. And
hang on. You went to Essendon last week and wore a cap, an Essendon cap. Well, did you have your Hawthorn jumper on today?
No. I didn't wear any of that. No, I went and had a look, and I saw a very, very below par Geelong team in the first half. They certainly came out in the second half. They probably got a spray like coaches can tend to do only now and again these days. But I reckon Chris Scott would have told them, listen, you blokes are not fair dinkum. The way you're playing, you don't deserve to make the finals. And he probably told some of them if they don't shape up, they'll be playing VFL for the rest of the season. They certainly came out and breathed fire in the second half and demolished Hawthorn. But I don't know that we've really beaten anyone significant yet. And when I say that, I know that we beat last year's reigning premier, but Geelong, when we beat Geelong, we're nowhere near full capacity and in form. And I think we've only just been treading water. We've been getting away with a lot of wins by just having a little patch of form for maybe a quarter or 20-minute period where we kick a few goals in succession. And as our percentage would tell you, we haven't really been winning by much at all. And we've only just beaten sides like GWS and North Melbourne and a very undermanned and underperforming Geelong and had a draw against Richmond. I think the jury's still out on Carlton. I know we're doing enough to win, and that's great. And that you don't have to be playing your best football in March and April. It's September that you've got to be doing that in. But nevertheless, I think the next few weeks is going to really test us to see how much we've improved. Now, this game against Adelaide last year was the one where the rot set in the last 4 rounds. We were expected to go over there and win and make the finals. We lost that game badly. Now, I'm not sure how much we've improved since last year. So this will tell us whether we've improved or not. And look, I'm going to tip us to win, but I do think it's going to be a cliffhanger. I really don't see this game being a blowout for either side. I think it could very well go down to the last 5 minutes where both sides have a chance to win. And on that basis, I'm going to tip us because I'm a Carlton supporter, but really it could very well go the other way. Don't be surprised if Adelaide do the number on us again. This time not by much, but don't be surprised if they get up, especially with that home crowd supporting them in what is going to be the first match in 9, all being played in Adelaide. So really it's going to be billed as a bit of a blockbuster. So their midfield worries me. I think our midfield has to really pick up its act compared to what it's been doing in the first 4 weeks. And we're going to need Harry to play, in my view. And that's why I think they'll throw everything but the kitchen sink at trying to get him off that one-match suspension. So a lot's going to depend on that. And the fact that Carlton's actually I think a $1.66 favourite at the moment.
Really?
As opposed to Adelaide, who are something like I think $2.23, I think it is. That tells me that people are expecting Harry to get off this. Otherwise, I don't see the odds being that far apart. If Harry does not play, I reckon those odds for Adelaide will shorten right up to about $1.90, and it'll probably be, an even $1.90 each by the time they start. If Harry doesn't play. I'm tipping Carlton by 1 point. There you go.
Oh, there you go. I think we'll win just, but I don't think it'll be a pretty win. I don't think it'll be pretty. Now, Vince, Lana says the bag of supports will be out in force. Are you still off to Adelaide?
Absolutely. And
so you and Rocco?
Well, yes, Rocco and partners. Yes, I'll be staying on for the entire 4 days, in fact, Joe. So back on Sunday night.
So you can go see your other 2 teams, Essendon and Hawthorn. So is that what you're trying to tell Peter and I?
Not at all.
Is that what you want to tell us? Is there something you want to tell us, Vince?
No, not at all. Oh, mate, Carlton is my team.
But Peter and I are beginning to wonder.
No. Let's not get carried away. I will be, in fact, at the Carlton pre-match function, co-hosting there and doing the auction and conducting the quiz and having a bit of fun with all of the South Australian supporters and all of the other Carlton supporters who've travelled there from all parts of Australia. So it should be good fun at the Cathedral Hotel, just up the road from the Adelaide Oval.
So, Vince, there's a rumour going around that you were once president of the Essendonians. Is that true or not true?
Now, Joe, you're really starting to make a mockery out of this. You're going to say something, Brownie? Brownie was going to say something.
Yeah, look, as you know, every now and then at the end of this segment, I usually throw a grenade in just for the bloody hell of it, right? So
there we go.
Do it again tonight.
Why should it not be any different?
Yeah, well, why should it be? One of the things that probably, and I spoke to Vince about this the other day, one of the things, and Rocco actually, one of the things that's missing in our game today is the individualism, is the characters, is the guys that are now. If you look at all the other codes that are played, soccer, rugby, NFL, all of those types of games, there is always characters in amongst their teams, and I just think that we have just become so clinical in this game that we call our great Australian game, that the characters of the game are just not there. They've been they've been run out of town. So,
But you get.
Sorry,
mate. Okay. I was going to say you get chastised if you say anything that's not, we're taking it 1 week at a time, and we do this. We don't encourage it, do we? We just, there's no.
That's what you call. That's what happens when you've got media departments instructing players on what to say, holding classes for them on how to deal with the media, what to say to certain questions. And it's just making everything, as Peter said, very clinical and very sterile. And it's taking the personality out of the situation. I mean, even the way we play the game has become so predictable that like Jake Stringer yesterday let a big torpedo go from outside 50 metres, and everyone just almost,
boom,
went berserk at the ground because we haven't seen a torpedo like that get kicked from outside 50 for a goal since probably Jaden Hunt from Melbourne did it over in Alice Springs, I think it was, or Darwin one night against Adelaide. I remember he let go a big torp. And again, people went berserk over that one. So we only see it maybe once every 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think the game is in a situation where, and I made the point earlier tonight, right? In and around a clearance, when there is a ball up or a throw up, if you want to call it nowadays, they're in a situation where they're worried about what their opponent's doing rather than creating an opportunity off the hand. And this is all a part of their systems and everything like that. But that's not my point. My point is that individuals in this game, the game was created around individuals. It was created around characters. It's created around personalities and all this sort of thing. And when you're taking that out of the game, you're taking and I'll use the analogy, right? Theatre out of the game.
Yes.
And we're in a situation where they're in the game, I should say, and I'll use the word game, of entertainment. And we realistically, who are we entertaining? Are they entertaining themselves, or are they entertaining the
corporate sponsors? They're doing the corporate sponsors.
See, I'll be honest with you, Joe. I enjoy going to watch other games because sometimes you'll see players that are worth watching purely for the entertainment value. It might be, these days it might be Cozzy Pickett for Melbourne, or it might be Jake Stringer at Essendon, or it might be, Toby Green for GWS, because these guys do things that are outside the politically correct thing to do. And as Peter says, they're characters, and they're being stifled at every turn. So, it's certainly not the way it used to be back in your day, Peter, when we had characters like Percy Jones and guys like that playing for the Blues.
Anyway. Crackers Keenan
for the opposition.
Don Scott. You could continue to
maybe we should take. Sorry, Pete. Maybe we should take a leaf out of the NBA. I saw over the weekend 2 teammates punching on the sidelines. That's characters.
2 teams.
Yeah. Well, but it shows that they're passionate. I mean,
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Prior to the season, and I think it was yes, it was a practice match, an intra-club practice match with Hawthorn, and Sam Mitchell came out because 2 of them had a crack at one another and smacked each other in the mouth, and he said, "Yeah, I love that sort of stuff." But then when it comes to the season, it's not going to happen.
No, but anyway. So look,
that's my bitch for the week. So
you can have it. Maybe we should have Peter's bitch, Brownie's bitch, or something. Like
Brownie's bitch, like Rocco's rant in the jumper punch.
That's a new segment. No, Peter. Look, we'd like to thank you. You're always honest, and we do value your opinion and your time. So I hope one day when we get to Melbourne, we can go out. Well, when I get to Melbourne, we go out and have a beer and actually meet in person. Pete,
that'd be great.
Vince tells me you're a good player. I've never met Vince.
Oh, really?
How long have I known you, Vince?
I've done a pretty good job of staying away from him, haven't I, Peter?
Hey, I'll just end the broadcast now. Peter, thanks a lot. Have a good couple of days. Enjoy your Easter and go back to the Nana rug and in front of the fire.
We'll see you on Sunday next week instead of Monday.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Blue Sunday will actually be on Sunday, not Blue Monday.
That's right.
See you,
Fair
Barry.
enough.
Yeah,
All right,
mate.
guys.
Whoops. Well,
There we go.
we went a bit long there, Vince. So
How good's Brownie? Hey, he's fantastic. We've had so much fantastic support and words of appreciation and approval from our viewers. They really love his input on the game and his opinions. Not everyone agrees with him all the time, but geez, he's good to listen to, and he certainly gives you that perspective from someone who's played the game and understands what's necessary in a game of football.
Like
So
a lot of us have it.
we are very lucky to have him, and it's great to have him as a regular on Blue Sunday.
So Vince, now it's time for a bit of frivolity. Okay.
we've got about 4.5 minutes before 1.5 hours, so let's make sure we get it done by then, shall we?
Time for Big Vincen's Omen Bet of the Week. So Vince,
as opposed to Big
week,
Vince from New Zealand.
last week we gave you a task. You let us down. You bet. You told us to back the Wolf.
The Wolf, because I thought of course, Adam Sard's been given that tag now by Rocco and all the boys at the Jumper Punch. But what we didn't realise is there was a horse in that race called Regal Rock, and it won the race at odds of 80-1.
Look,
for the
81-1, and we came stone motherless last.
The one we suggested was the favourite, and he came last. My goodness me, how did we get that wrong?
Well,
we could have got 80-1, Joe.
How did you get that wrong, Vince?
Yeah, I did get that wrong.
And
I didn't tip an 80-1 shot. Sorry.
And the other one we gave you.
Mm-hmm. Manifestly excessive, which I thought was the description you could use to describe that umpiring decision that the umpire gave last week against GWS. But anyway,
let me quote
where
Vince
he paid a free kick for dissent.
Vince,
that didn't do any good either.
Our viewers are living on the street. I told them to put their house on a multi. You could have had the 81. You could have had the 81-1.
Well, Joe, this week, I'm reliably informed that you've had a big night out on Friday night and you got absolutely paralytic. So I've decided to go for a couple of horses that I noticed during this week.
I didn't get paralytic.
I'm only kidding. I'm exaggerating, everyone.
Let's say I took the scenic route home using the whole footpath, right?
In other words, you were staggering home from having too many drinks.
The scenic route.
I'm glad that they didn't ban alcohol on Good Friday.
No. So what's the first
what we're going for here is Tuesday night at Mildura Harness, race 9, number 3, Joey's Hangover.
And the multi, you'll like this one, Lana and Gina,
into Charlton Harness on Wednesday during the day. This is race 11, the pole marker, number 1. Joe got rolled. So the first bet. Let's have a go at them, shall we? As a multi-bet.
So Vince, I said last week that we would put in $20 each, right? So I'll send you $20. Yeah. What are you going to have on Joe's Hangover? I don't have
what we'll do is we'll go $5 on the multi-bet. Race 9, number 3 at Mildura, and race 11, number 1 at Charlton.
So it's all on me, is it?
It's all on the Joey horses. Joey's Hangover and Joe got rolled.
So, okay. Gina's asking, where's the link to pay? Gina, I'll send you a personal note. So if anyone else wants it, please let me know and I'll send them a note. As I said, we will run a rolling total. And at the end of the year, I was going to say if there is any money in the bank,
we'll have to keep topping it up, I reckon, the way we're going.
we'll donate it to the charity of Vince's Choice.
Yes.
And no, the charity is not Joseph Luzza and it's not Vince Locissano. So I like Lana. It's go, Joe. I was putting it all on Vince before Lana said, I love the way you're blaming Joe, Vince. No, but so
well,
this will
it's
be
all
my
on Joe
fault.
this week. It's Joey's hangover, and Joe got rolled.
And so that's the Omen bets. Yeah.
There you go. Yep, they're the Omen bets for the week. You can either bet on them individually. We're going to have a little $5 multi on both of them to get up.
There you go. So
right.
I'll let you put the bet on, Vince. So just a couple of things before we close.
Yep.
Don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe to In the Blue Corner, the Jumper Punch. Don't forget Tuesday night, so tomorrow.
Tomorrow night is the Jumper Punch at 7 o'clock, I should say. Yep.
Then have they got anyone for the Legends?
Of course.
On
Wednesday evening, the 7 o'clock show on the Jumper Punch channel is called Forever Rivals, where Rocco hosts the boys from Collingwood, Essendon, and Richmond. You got many from Collingwood, Mark from Essendon, and Quinn from Richmond. So it'll be an interesting chat, no doubt, on Wednesday night. They do that live, so you can certainly take part by sending in your comments during the show.
I want everyone who watched tonight. At 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vince. Everyone who watched tonight, get into Manny.
Yeah, Manny from Collingwood. He's an absolute laugh, but he's good value. And at 8 o'clock, of course, we've got the Legends of the Jumper Punch, and we have another Carlton legend being interviewed. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'll let Rocco divulge that when you watch the Jumper Punch tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Don't miss it. It's the best 2 hours plus of variety television that you'll see, that you won't see on commercial TV. You can only see it here on the YouTube channel of Blue Abroad. And, of course, the shows on Wednesday night are on the Jumper Punch channel.
Why are people saying Mance is hilarious? Is that who it is?
Manny.
No, it's Stuart McCade has said, oh, Rocco's told us. It's Glenn Manton, the Bolt.
There you go.
There you go. So I love the Bolt. I think he's...
So he's divulged it. I wasn't sure he was going to divulge it. But yes, the one and only 1995 Premiership player that we recruited from Essendon, Glenn Manton. Certainly a different cat. And I can assure you it was a very fun interview to do. Rocco and I did that in the studios of 3AW. So it'll be really good viewing on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock.
So Vince, in saying goodbye, first of all, I hope all our viewers had a fantastic Easter. Didn't do anything stupid like drink driving or speeding on the road. So they're all going to...
No, they're not like you, Joe.
I don't drive, Vince. That's why I can drink.
You're in Bangkok. You ride bicycles.
No, all the bars are just around the corner.
Or mopeds.
Talking of Bangkok, to all my Thai friends, it's Happy New Year in 2 days. It's Thai New Year. I will be doing a special thing for Rocco on the Jumper Punch about, they call it Songkran. It's the biggest water fight festival you'll ever see. So watch out for that. So I've been doing a little bit of filming for Rocco's show, The Jumper Punch. As you know, I do Bangkok Joe there. So you'll see me. I've done a few things. I'm not going to say I don't know what order Rocco's put them in, but I've got a few interesting things. I go to places in Bangkok that tourists don't normally go to. Not that it's anything bad. It's just very local, which is things that people don't get to see. They come here and see temples and shops, and so.
And this is all part of your. This is all thanks to your business over there in Bangkok called Retired Working for You. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's cool. I'll put the website address up. I should put Retired Working for You. For you tours.
We should make that a sponsor of our show, Joe. Why don't we do that?
We will. I will do that. That's Retired Working for You
W4UTours.com. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So go to that and you'll be able to be educated on what's really available to Australian tourists over in Bangkok, thanks to you.
let me show you the real Bangkok, not the dirty
Okay.
Bangkok. So the real Bangkok. So on that note, we'd like both Vince and I would like to sincerely thank Peter Brown. He's a great guy, and I'm sure the viewers love his candid honesty. And as Vince said earlier, he's played the game we haven't, so he brings a different perspective, which I must find. I find very enthralling, and I love listening to him. You can see I even shut up during it. So on that note, it's good night from me.
And also a happy Greek Easter to all of our Greek and Orthodox friends out there. For the coming week, they get 2 Easters a year. You know that? They get the normal one, and then they get their own one a week later.
Do they get Easter eggs?
Happy Greek Easter to all of the Orthodox people out there. So enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you in Adelaide to all of our South Australian viewers out there for the big clash between Adelaide and Carlton on Thursday night. And we'll be back, no doubt, on Sunday evening at 8 o'clock. So, yes, and good night from me, Joe.
So on that note, let's hope they play this on Sunday night, Thursday night, Vince.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark Blues.
So good night, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.